and there was blood everywhere. He was surrounded in a pool of his own blood, and he's gasping for life. He's gasping for air. His hand is on his throat and blood is just pouring out. And meanwhile, everyone is just standing around, just looking at him, including me. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to season 1, episode 10 of the Dozer Rescue Few Will Stand podcast. I'm your host, Dan Mendoza, and thanks for joining us. Today's episode is going to be about the story of the event that happened to me, that impacted me, and the thing that changed the way that I saw emergencies and ultimately led me to where I am today. And I also want to share this story with you to hopefully change the way that you prepare yourself and to help make sure that you don't become a bystander as I did. And for those of you that are new here, my name is Dan. I am the owner and founder of Dozer Rescue. I am a United States Air Force military veteran. I served for about 10 years. At first, I was a special operations aircraft mechanic, and then I later on cross-trained and became a combat flight medic or air medical evacuation technician. I graduated from a California firefighter academy. I've been an EMT for a couple of years. I've taught TCCC. I teach BLS and things of that nature. But before any of that, I was a bystander. And this is my story of what triggered that, because I never used to be this way. And as a matter of fact, I had no medical background or no medical training at all whatsoever. And so this is the story of how that came to be. This was in the middle of my training of becoming a mechanic in the Air Force. And so with that, we were stationed at Shepherd Air Force Base, which is located in Wichita Falls in Texas. I remember we were off duty. It was a weekend, and I had went out with a couple of my friends, and we went to just a small local mall. It was maybe 15, 20 minutes away from base. And for those of you that have been up there in Wichita Falls, you'll know that there's nothing to do out there. It's just desolate. It's the kind of place where you see tumbleweed roll by, and there's not a whole lot out there. So regardless, we were at the mall, and we were just hanging out, having a good time. We're a bunch of young guys. We're like 18, 19, 20 years old. We were in a pretty strenuous pipeline, and so we were just trying to let off some steam and hang out. And so I'll never forget this event that happened. But as we were there at the mall, we're hanging out and walking, and I see that there's this man. He's an older man, and he's laying on the floor, and he's twitching and doing this thing. And now, granted, at this time, I have absolutely no medical, no first aid, no CPR. Like, I have no medical training at all. At this point, I think I was like 18 or 19, basically came straight out of like high school. And so here I come, I'm walking up and I see this guy who's laying on the ground, and he is just surrounded in a pool of his own blood, and it's everywhere. And it's very clear to see that he has his hand on his throat and blood is just pouring from his neck. And he's like gasping for air. He's sitting there shaking on the floor and blood is just everywhere. It was like watching a movie, seeing how much blood was coming out of this guy. And he was just in this pool. So we walk up and we see this, and I'm with my friends, and I'm with like 3 or 4 of my friends, and we're all military. And we're seeing this go down, and it felt like slow motion. It felt like all time had stopped because I'm just watching this happen in detail, and I'm not moving, and I can't really do a whole lot. And I realized that at this point, there's a whole crowd. There's probably, I would say maybe 12, 13, 14 people that were all standing around this guy, just watching him. And I'm watching him too. And we're all just watching this guy bleed out to death. And I'm watching this happen, and I felt so helpless because there was nothing I could do. And I'll never forget, one of my friends looked at me and he said, "Can't you do something? Don't you have some kind of like medical background or experience?" Or it basically was like, "Jump in, do something." And I remember I looked at him and I was like, "Dude, I don't know what to do. I have no clue what I would even do." And so I'm sitting here watching this guy bleed out. And I remember the question that my friend had asked me, and looking back at the situation, was just, it did something to me, and it made me realize that I never want to be a bystander ever again. because out of not only myself, but again, I was with like 3 or 4 friends. We're all young guys. We could have helped and done something. And then we're with like 14 other civilians who are just standing around, and we're in a crowd. We're watching this guy bleed out to death. And no one is doing anything. No one is like trying to assist, or everyone is just watching him. I can't remember it super clearly, but I'm sure people were videotaping it. And somebody, thank God, had called 911 because eventually a firefighter came. And I remember the firefighter from a distance. I remember the firefighter walking over, and he's looking at this guy from a distance. And at first he was in like a rush, but he saw what was going on and just started taking his time walking over. It's almost like he knew what was going on, and he realized that there was no hope. So he kind of slowed his roll and he came over. But I just remember watching all this in slow motion, and I'm like, do something, like get over there and help him. When in reality, we got to point the finger at ourselves. And I realized I couldn't do anything, and I was just helpless, and I couldn't take care of this guy. I had no idea, no training. And I remember that feeling of I could have done something here today, and I could have saved this guy's life, and I didn't. But instead I became that bystander. I just sat there and watched. And it sucks looking back at it. If I could go back in time and help that guy, I absolutely would. I've used this opportunity not as a memory of regret, but as a memory to push me forward and to remind myself that even when things get tough, when you don't want to go do the training and you don't want to do the recertification and you don't feel the need to stay up on your skills and things, I think back to that moment and it motivates me so that I never have to be in that position again. I don't want to just sit there on the sidelines and watch as someone not only dies, but if someone is injured and suffering. And that was a moment that stuck out to me. And that was something I want to share with you guys from my personal experience. And there's a couple lessons that I took from that, right? And so the very first lesson that I think should come from this story is that most people aren't ready. I wasn't ready. And unfortunately, that's the standard. Most people aren't. Training doesn't just appear. You don't just think about, oh, I know how to do this, I'm going to take care of it. You don't just MacGyver it. You have to have experience and training, and you have to be exposed to these kind of things. And that lesson that most people aren't ready, I want to share that with everyone and let them know that you should always be ready and you should always stay prepared. And that's the big foundation of Dozer Rescue. Is this was an event that happened to me, and I became medical and I became prepared, and I started doing jobs and wanting to get more involved on the ambulance, 911 calls, and doing things like that so that I could help out in these times of crisis. But that wasn't always me. And so I want to share with my experiences and my business and my time to you, the listeners, the viewers. I want to share with you guys that it is important to be prepared. And for those of you that are scrolling through social media and Instagram and Facebook, there is situations happening all across the country all the time about active shooters, people pulling out guns and doing stupid stuff, injuries taking place, either it's self-inflicted or not. There is always a reason to need to be prepared and stay on your guard. And so I just want to share that with you guys. This is a very real example of here I was going with my friends to the mall to go hang out. And lo and behold, this guy bleeds out to death and dies right there in front of me. And had I been prepared and carried some kind of a first aid kit on me or the trauma kits or things that I know now, but if I had just carried something on me, something small, or even just having the training, could have grabbed something. I could have grabbed a shirt or cloth, or there's something I could have done there. But instead, I didn't. And I just want to hit that lesson home for you guys is it is important to stay prepared. And no matter what you're going into, no matter what you're doing, something can happen at a moment's notice. The other thing is that bystander syndrome, it's real, right? And it happens. And unfortunately, it's very common. And this isn't my first rodeo where I've experienced or seen this. This was a time where I was the bystander, but there's also been numerous times where I have seen people just crowd and watch an accident. How many times have you ridden on the road or the highway and there's an accident and everyone slows down and everyone wants to gawk and take a look and take pictures and videos and report it and all these different things, right? Instead of getting out and helping, calling 911, being there, or just getting out of the way so that real professionals can come in and make the difference, people just gather. And it sucks. I have another situation, which maybe we can talk about in another episode, where there was a huge accident, a huge pileup when I was actually on my way home from a military drill weekend. Long story short, it was a mess, but I had a crowd of, I want to say again, probably similar to the scenario I just described, 12, 14, 13 people or so standing all around me when I'm trying to help this kid who's in the car crash, and people are just videotaping me. No one is there to help. And I had to yell at a lady to call for 911. And I'm not even kidding you. She was an older woman, but I said, call 911. And she goes, how do I do that? And I'm like, lady, call 911 on your phone. Well, what do I say? I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I'm so frustrated because I have traffic backed up. It's smoky. It's at nighttime. There's red lights and glare from all the brakes and stuff. There's a crowd of people around me. There's a kid who was going in one direction on the highway, hit the barricade, spun out and landed on the other side of the highway. I'm trying to take care of him. And during this whole process, that's what she's like, how do I call 911? I was so frustrated because there was so much going on and she couldn't even do the basics. And so stuff like that is frustrating. So the second lesson to you is I ask and pray that don't let yourself become a bystander. Do something. If you don't know how to intervene and help out and you don't have the training, that's fine. Okay. Call 911, ask for help, clear things out of the way so that firefighters or EMS can get in there. Whatever the situation is, ask, what can you do for assistance? Just be proactive. Don't just stand around. It makes things a whole bunch worse when you have a crowd of people surrounding someone who's injured or surrounding an incident and they won't move and they're just sitting there because they want to film it and put it on Instagram or social media. Knock it off. Don't do that stuff. So don't be a bystander. And the third lesson is that you never know what is going to happen in your life to affect the changes in your life or the outcome. Right. And so I just wanted to share with you guys to always be aware of what happens in your life and to take things and understand them and reflect on them, because something bad might happen to you and you may think that this is like a punishment, karma, or God is punishing you, but take things and learn from them. That's my lesson to you, is learn from your mistakes, learn from your regrets, learn from negative actions, and let them propel you to move forward, to make a positive change and a positive action in your life. Because this was something that let's be honest, I could have saw that incident and then I could cry about it and say, this is so traumatic for me and this and this and this. And I could just play that role of a victim. Look at poor me. I witnessed this guy bleed out to death, and be sad, be sorry for me. I had experienced that. I could do that. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that think that way and have that mindset. But instead, I want to share with you, don't do that. Let those outcomes, let those negative events transform you and make you more proactive, make you stronger, make you more positive, and make you someone that can make a difference in the world. And so that event happened and I realized it sucked and it changed me. It made me stronger. It made me go, I need to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And I just stand by and watch it. So what did I do? I went through and said, I'm going to become a flight medic. I'm not ever letting this happen again. And that shaped me and that really changed me and it really sparked my journey. And so then I went through and learned a bunch of medical information and interventions. And I worked in the ER and I've worked on the ambulance and I've worked here and I've worked on the aircraft and I've done this. And there's a lot of different scenarios and trauma-based scenarios that I've worked in and pushed myself to be in to better prepare myself so that doesn't happen again. And so again, that lesson is take things for what they are, but if it's a bad experience, let it change you into something positive. So with that being said, you guys, thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode of the Dozer Rescue Fuel Stand podcast. If you like this episode and you want to hear more content, similar episodes, check out Dozer Rescue. That's my business. That's my baby. And so I've got a YouTube channel. I got TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I have all these different platforms as well as a bunch of different stores. So I have the Dozer Rescue store. I have an Amazon storefront. I've got a free tactical gear guide. If you want to prepare yourself and your family, you can check that out by going to my Instagram page, clicking the link in my bio, and I have everything there for you so you can just go. But Dozer Rescue is your one-stop shop to prepare yourself, prepare your family, get tactically trained, and make sure that these situations don't happen to you. Let me use my experiences to share them with you so you can be better off and better prepared. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. This was the Dozer Rescue Fuel Stand Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Mendoza, and I really appreciate you for tuning in and listening. So take care of yourself. God bless you, and I will see you in the next one.